Unfortunately, we are late. My name is Shalom Wald. Until this morning, I wasn't sure what gave me the honor to be the chair of session 2. In my past, I was head of biotechnology in the OECD, an international organization. I dealt with genetics as a policy issue, and I wrote a book where I spoke about genetics, but all this was not enough. Since this morning I know why I'm here. It's Dawn who reveals the truth. I am an Ashkenazi Levite, and one of those 500,000 prayer runs. And while I was sitting on burning coals at the beginning, because I knew the theory that Ashkenazi Levites were not really of Jewish origin, I'm very reassured that I am of Jewish origin, and I returned to my original home in the Levant, in the Near East. Okay. This seminar, this session is devoted to the issue of genetics meets Jewish history. This is an issue, a tale that does not only include science and history, it includes a lot of politics and ideology. That is what makes it interesting but also problematic. We have 3 speakers. Professor Benson is the president of the Haifa University, Professor Stamper from the Haifa University, and unfortunately Professor Tudor Parfit, who was supposed to sit here, was taken very ill yesterday night. He's in hospital. He cannot come. We wish him with Shlema, speedy recovery, and hope we will see him later in a later conference. Mr. Greenspan, Bennett Greenspan, who is an expert in genealogy, was kind enough to replace him. So I'll make a few introductory comments. I said that the issue we are dealing here with is full of politics and ideology. I give you 2 extreme examples. There was, I will mention to you, one very successful meeting between genetics and Jewish history. This was the DNA decoding of fragments of Dead Sea Scrolls, which happened in the 1990s. You know, you may remember that some of these famous Qumran scrolls were so incomplete, but then the Bedouins who found them are intelligent people. They have been in contact with Jews for a long time, so they learned that if they cut the scrolls into little pieces and sell piece by piece to different antique dealers, they will get much more money. So the pieces were recovered, and the scientists were desperate. I mean, how do you pull together partly difficult to read fragments of scrolls? And here came the geneticists and said, most scrolls were based on one goat skin, parchment from one goat skin. They identified the DNA of goat skins, and that allowed them to pull together the individual texts, which was an enormous contribution. It was hailed, I remember there was a special communique of the AAAS hailing this as a great breakthrough and success of science and of genetics, and it created no problem. Created no problem because using DNA to deal with dead goats and using DNA to deal with living Jews are 2 different things. Here comes ideology. I'll give you a counterexample, extreme counterexample. It is the infamous or famous Khazar myth. The fairy tale that Ashkenazi Jews are descendants of the Khazar. I know that the geneticists among you are sick and tired to hear of this. You spend too much time already looking for things that don't exist, but we have to speak about this because the fairy tale does not go away. It comes back again and again. Scientifically, that file is closed. I mean, let's not come back to this, but the idea continues to survive. The reason is that this strange idea responds to very different ideological needs of Jews. Often they are desperate of their situation in their time. Now I'll give you 3 examples. Example of the Yehuda Köstler, the Hungarian Jewish novelist who died in 1981, and the already mentioned Shlomo Wald. Yehuda Halevi published his book, the Kuzari, in the 12th century. If you read the Arab title, you understand immediately what his problem was. The Arab title of the book is A Reputation and Proof of the Most Despised Religion. In his time, Jews in the wide Muslim world were able to live better than in Europe. They had certain advantages, but very often they suffered, they were persecuted, and they were a despised religion. And Yehuda Halevi, who was a proud proto-Zionist, wanted to show we don't deserve this contempt, we are actually better than all of you. And you see the Khazars that this powerful tribe converted to Judaism, that's the proof that we are better. That was Yehuda Halevi. So he reacted to the contempt of the Jewish religion in Islam and in Christianity. Let's jump to Arthur Köstler. Arthur Köstler was a Hungarian Jew who had met anti-Semitism all his life. More than half of Hungarian Jewry was destroyed during the Holocaust. And he came back to this theory. Whether he believed in it is not clear from this book. But he had one clear agenda. He was convinced that if he can prove that Jews are not really Jews, they are something else, sort of Turks, the anti-Semites will stop hating Jews. He said it very clearly, hate Turks if you like, don't hate Jews. Of course, it is an illusion. The book had no effect in this sense, on the contrary. His book was picked up, he called it the Khazar Empire and its Heritage. His book was picked up immediately by Arab propaganda. I remember that the father of the current dictator of Syria, Hafez al-Assad, keep mentioning it to his visitors, that Israel has no right, because we all know that the Zionists are descendants of the Khazars. The Turks, in contrast, they liked the book. It was a little Turkish. It flattered their ego. The Turks are a global power. Even the Jews depend on them. They like this. I was interviewed by a Turkish journalist and found by interviewing a Turkish newspaper. I walked on eggshells. I knew already that the theory was wrong, but I didn't want to do damage to our alleged friendship, Israeli-Turkish friendship. Then comes Shlomo Wald. He came back to the theory. He called his book The Invention of the Jewish People. It's already clear what his identity was. The Khazars are the originators of European Jews. The Zionists are not real Jews. The real Jews, they left, or they stayed and became Palestinians. And the whole Israel, he didn't deny Israel's right to exist, but he followed the idea that Ashkenazi Jews are not real Jews. The Zionists invented them. It's about the same like the inscription I found some time ago in, was it Yehuda or Mea Shearim, Zionim lo Yehudim. Zionists are not Jews. That was his theory. Now, his ideology was clearly rooted in his origin in the Communist Party. His parents were members of the Polish Communist Party. He was members of the Communist Youth Movement of Max Penn later on. And his idea was an imitation of what Marxism-Leninism, who denied that there was an entire Jewish people. Even more, in Sam's time, genetics was already speaking about this theory, dismissing it, and he was dismissing genetics as race science. That is exactly what Stalin's protégé, Lysenko, told. Lysenko identified genetics as contrary to Marxism-Leninism, expelled geneticists from Soviet universities, killed genetics research in the Soviet Union, and Russian scientists told me not long ago that until today, Russian science has not completely recovered from this loss. So the same idea, the doesn't want to die because it reflects Jewish need, Jewish ideological need. First, to prove that Jews are superior. Second, to prove that Jews are not Jews, the Turks. Third, to prove that the Zionists invented that European Jews are descendants of the Jews of ancient times. Now, since 2008, 2010, a growing number of publications were revealing very interesting results of studies. You know, the two studies, the authors are sitting here, the two major studies on the global Jewish genome, one published in Nature, the other published in the American Journal of Human Genetics. At the same time, Professor Oster's book came out, Legacy, in 2010. A lot of very interesting studies came out that should have created a lot of interest in the historical community, community of historians, because these studies touched on not just on genetics, on health, they touched on Jewish history. Jewish historians did not react as one would have expected. These studies were praised in the scientific community. They were reported in the general media. Interestingly, usually the general media don't speak much of genetics, but these studies were in the general media. The historians were reluctant. There is a key problem there. In 1959, famous Cambridge scientist C.P. Snow wrote a book called The Two Cultures. The two cultures are the culture of hard science and of humanities, and C.P. Snow said that there is a big gap between these two cultures that don't meet, that don't speak to each other, and he didn't blame one side or the other. He said that this is a key problem of Western civilization, going back to the 16th, 17th century. In the meantime, a lot of things have changed. Multidisciplinarity is praised all over, but still there is a gap between these two cultures, which explains some of the reluctance of the historians. The language is different. How many traditional historians know what a haplotype is, what a genotype is? How many scientists, how many geneticists will write their papers in a language that is more understandable to historians? I'm afraid not many. Snow didn't blame either side. He didn't blame the historians, he didn't blame the scientists. In 2008, the American Journal of Sociology produced a very interesting paper, not signed, so it is the editors who published it. They said that the social sciences, including history, historians, must treat genetics as an archive to dig in. If they don't treat it as an archive, they will be left behind. I like that metaphor a lot. The human genome is in fact an archive. It's an archive like a written archive about history. And the author invited historians to dig in. We are not there yet. There are historians who have an eye on genetics. Parfit is one of them. Unfortunately, he's not here. On the whole, it will take time before history fully grasps the importance of genetics. There are exceptions. They are here. We heard a lot about genetics and Jewish identity. A lot this morning. I don't want to add a lot to this. In my institute, the Jewish People Policy Institute, we work a lot on Jewish identity. A recent opinion poll in the United States, taken as the Pew poll, showed that about a fifth of all American Jews explain their Jewishness or their Jewish identity by referring to their Jewish families and their ancestry, their roots. So this is important, and we have to reflect on how the advances in genetics will affect the Jewish identity. I think it's much too early to tell now. We don't know. The signs are contradictory. Based on all what I heard this morning, I suppose that genetics will have a much deeper effect on Jewish identity in the United States because identities are fluid in America. I suspect that in Europe it will not have a great effect, and neither will it in Israel, but I may be wrong. The next years will show. For me, much more interesting than the effect of genetics on identity of Jews is the effect of genetics on those groups in Asia, Africa, and the Americas who want to convert to Judaism or to claim Jewish ancestry. And in quite a number of cases, you can find, or scientists found, traces of Jewish ancestry in some of them. Now, we don't know, the traditional Jews are extremely reluctant. The chief rabbinate is hostile in Israel. The Israeli government is not very interested. We don't know how far this can go. There are claimants in Africa who say that their tribe or tribes consist of 6, 10, 12 million people who all claim to be Jews. There's a lot of fantasy there, but if this movement continues and if it gets stronger, it could create a very interesting social and political issues. Can we maintain, will Israel be able to maintain the kashrut, the law of return, if suddenly millions and millions of people say we are Jews? We don't know. You know the problem with political discussions about the remaining Ethiopians who say they are Jews. If there's a problem with 9,000 more, it was a problem. Imagine what it will be when there will be 20 million. Anyway, another issue that we have to consider is the effect of genetics on Jewish historic memory. In 1982, well-known Jewish historian Haifa July wrote a little book that has become a classic in the meantime, Zachor, Jewish History and Jewish Memory. There he analyzes what he believes to be a growing gap between Jewish memory, what Jews believe, the Chagim, the celebrations which Jews, and Jewish historiography, which proves, it doesn't prove always that what they believe, what they celebrate has happened. Yerushalmi was afraid that this would threaten Jewish identity in the future, and he sort of appeals to Jewish religious leaders to be more open to historic research. It didn't happen. They were not more open. So almost 40 years have passed. Nothing has happened. The ultra-Orthodox don't care about historic research. They ignore it. The religious always find ways around interpreting stories. No bad thing has happened to Jewish memory. I think Jewish memory is rather getting stronger over time. And the question now is, if the discoveries of genetics continue and accumulate, will this remain so, or will it have an effect on Jewish memory? I don't know. History will say. I have a wish list of historic questions that could be Jewish historic questions that could be analyzed by genetics. If geneticists would find answers, I don't want to give you the whole wish list. There are in Jewish history a lot of migrations, and we will hear about one possible migration by Professor Stampfer. Was it a migration? Was it not a migration? Genetics can say a lot about these migrations. There were a lot of cases where Jewish communities appeared in one place and then disappeared 300 years later. We don't know where. Very interesting case of the military garrison in Elephantine in the south of Egypt that stayed there for 300 years. And then disappeared. We don't know how, where did they integrate, where they came from, no idea. We have the problem of conversion to Islam, free conversion, not free conversion. How many Muslims today in the Near East are there originally Jews? We don't know. There are lots of migrations that are central in Jewish history. I would have liked to propose that maybe genetics can tell us something about the exodus from Egypt, but Behar convinced me that 3,200 years ago there were so many migrations between Egypt and the Middle East that it would be impossible to identify a specific one and attach it to the exodus. So let me finish my short talk with a nice story that will make you laugh. It's the story of the encounter between King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, Shlomo HaMelech and Malkat Sheba. You know the story probably from the Bible, Melachim, the Queen of Sheba in Ethiopia, hears of the fame of Shlomo, hears that he's a famous man, the wisest man. She travels to Jerusalem, tests him with many questions, found him a great man, blesses him, and goes back to the Bible. It's a nice little story. In Jewish tradition, it's not a very important story. In 2012, an Italian geneticist, Dr. Pagani, and his team, who is an expert in the genetics of Ethiopia, found a distinct gene flow coming from the Near East to Ethiopia 3,000 years ago. That's the time Shlomo HaMelech was supposed to have ruled. And the team clearly made a link to the story of the Bible. Now, the biblical story is discreet, polite. The Ethiopian tradition, which has the same story, is much more blunt. The Ethiopian story, which is 1,000 years old or older, says the two had a love affair. And of this love affair sprung a little boy, Menelik, who is the ancestor of the imperial dynasty of Ethiopia, with its last descendant, Haile Selassie, last emperor of Ethiopia. Now, the story of the Queen and King Solomon was extremely important in Christian tradition. Why, I don't know, but there are a number of European painters who painted it. One was Piero della Francesca, one of the great painters of the early 15th century. It's a beautiful painting that shows the Queen bowing to King Solomon and shaking hands. It's a beautiful painting. I'm sorry I didn't paint it here. In contrast, then, the Ethiopian books that speak of the myth are much more blunt. I would have liked to bring this here, but I couldn't get the right copy. In Ethiopian chronicles, many centuries old, paintings, the queen laying flat on her back, King Solomon laying on top of her flat. Both, of course, keep their crown. Royalty obliges. And the next painting shows little Menelik. So I don't think the story is sufficient to incriminate those for adultery, but it should be sufficient to keep you thinking about the issue of genetics and Jewish history. Thank you very much. May I ask